All right, let's jump right into a literal nightmare scenario that we as internal auditors see way too often. You think your company is completely protected, right? Just because of a few words signed on a contract. But actually, there's this massive blind spot in your vendor management just sitting there waiting to strike. So welcome to The Explainer. I'm your host here at the Agile Auditor for Risk Vigilant Bharat, and today we're putting on our investigative hats. We're breaking down insurance clauses versus certificate tracking. We'll expose the gaps, identify those red flags, and show you exactly how to bulletproof your organization's protection. Let's get right to the stakes.
2 crores. Yep, you heard that right. That is the exact value of the inventory that was completely destroyed when a vendor's forklift crashed straight into a company warehouse. Now, obviously, the contract clearly stated the vendor was financially liable for any damages, but there was a major problem. The vendor was completely broke. So when the company tried to claim the vendor's insurance to recover that 2 crore loss, they discovered something absolutely horrifying. The policy had actually been canceled 6 months prior. The result? The company was forced to swallow the entire loss themselves. And why did this happen? Well, the buyer demanded insurance in the contract, sure, but they completely failed to track the actual certificates. That 2 crore loss? That's the literal price of a missing control.
So to make sure this doesn't happen to us, we need to drop all the jargon and get crystal clear on 2 very distinct concepts. First up, the insurance clause. This is simply the legal rule in your contract demanding that the vendor buy specific insurance, like general liability or workers' comp, before they even step foot on the job. That's just the rule. Certificate tracking, on the other hand, is the active, ongoing administrative process. It's the physical collection of their official certificate of insurance, or COI for short, and the continuous monitoring of that document to make sure the policy hasn't expired or, worse, been secretly canceled.
Think about it like this. Imagine you're getting pulled over by the traffic police. The law clearly states you have to have car insurance to drive on the road, right? That is the clause. But when that police officer walks up to your window, they don't just take your word for it, do they? No way. They don't just ask, hey, did you promise to get insurance? They demand to see your physical insurance card, and you better believe they strictly check that expiration date. That process right there, that's certificate tracking. If your card expired yesterday, the rule doesn't matter anymore. You're driving completely unprotected. As auditors, we absolutely cannot just trust the contract. We have to be the traffic police.
Let's look at how this plays out in a real workplace scenario at XYZ Limited. So, Ria hires a scaffolding vendor to work on the factory roof. Her contract includes a really strict insurance clause, demanding a 5 crore liability policy. But Ria's sharp, Before that vendor is even allowed through the front gate, she demands the physical COI. She logs the policy's exact expiration date, which happens to be December 31st, directly into her tracking system. Now, as things happen, the roofing project gets delayed. It drags into January. And then, on January 2nd, Ria's system flashes a critical warning. The policy has expired. Because she actually tracked it, she blocks that vendor right at the gate on January 2nd until they hand over a newly renewed certificate. By simply monitoring that one date, Ria saved XYZ Limited from a potential multi-core, totally uninsured disaster.
And this brings us to what is probably the most common rookie mistake we see in audits: confusing the legal requirement with the actual proof. Let's break this down. The insurance clause, it's literally just words on a piece of paper. The danger there is that a vendor can easily sign the contract agreeing to buy insurance and then just conveniently forget to actually pay the premium. Now, the certificate of insurance, the COI, that is official proof straight from the insurance broker. But, and this is a big but, its inherent danger is that it only proves they had insurance on the exact day it was printed. It doesn't mean they'll have it tomorrow. And that is exactly why it has to be tracked and updated constantly.
Which brings us to the auditor's eye. If you're an internal auditor or a fresher just learning the ropes, pay very, very close attention to these 3 steps, because this is the ultimate red flag. We call it the ghost policy. And here is exactly how the scam works. Step 1, a clever vendor buys a 1-month insurance policy just to get their hands on a shiny new certificate of insurance. Step 2, they hand that official-looking certificate over to a lazy buyer, and boom, they win the contract. Step 3, they immediately turn around, call their broker, and cancel the policy the very next day to get a cash refund. The buyer, meanwhile, just files that piece of paper in a drawer and literally never checks it again. The vendor operates completely uninsured, and the buyer has absolutely no idea until a disaster strikes.
Okay, so how do we stop the ghost policy? Well, as auditors, we have to actively hunt for these deceptive vendor practices by enforcing really strict vendor management controls. And the most powerful control you can implement, seriously, this is the gold standard, is bypassing the vendor entirely. Require your buyers to request updated COIs directly from the insurance brokers themselves. Do not just take the piece of paper from the vendor who, let's be honest, might have doctored it or already canceled it. Get it straight from the source. That is absolutely the only way to prove the policy is actually alive and active.
Let's wrap up with this one thought. The clause creates the rule, but tracking the certificate proves the vendor followed it. I want you to sear that into your mind. Because without tracking, a contract is just a piece of paper waiting for a 2 crore disaster to happen. Build your controls, track those expiration dates, and never ever just take a vendor's word for it. So I'll leave you with this question to ask yourself today. Are your vendor contracts actually protecting your business, or are they just providing a multi-core false sense of security? That's it for this explainer. Thanks so much for joining me here at the Agile Auditor. Next time, we're going to dive into the mechanics of duplicate payment fraud, so make sure those investigative skills are sharp and ready to go.